Our reading this morning comes from a meditation manual written by Reverend Victoria Safford, and this is one of the passages in that meditation manual called Set in Stone. In a cemetery once, an old one in New England, I found a strangely soothing epitaph. The name of the deceased and the dates had been scoured away by wind and rain, but there was a carving of a tree with roots and branches, a classic 19th century motif, and among them the words, "She attended well and faithfully to a few worthy things." At first, this seemed to me a little meager, a little stingy on the part of her survivors. But I wrote it down, and I have thought about it since, and now I can't imagine a more proud or satisfying legacy. She attended well and faithfully to a few worthy things. Every day I stand in danger of being struck by lightning and having the obituary in the local paper say, for all the world to see, "She attended frantically and ineffectually to a great many unimportant, meaningless details." How do you want your obituary to read? "He got all the dishes washed and dried before playing with his children in the evening. She balanced her checkbook with meticulous precision and never missed a day of work. Missed a lot of sunsets, missed a lot of love, missed a lot of risk, missed a lot. But her money was in order. She answered all her calls, all her email, all her voicemail, but along the way she forgot to answer the call to service and compassion and forgiveness, first and foremost of herself. He gave and forgave sparingly, without radical intention, without passion or conviction. She could not or would not hear the calling of her heart. How will it read? How does it read? And if you had to name a few worthy things to which you attend well and faithfully, what, I wonder, would they be? Congratulations on you who have bridged. Welcome into adulthood. And I hope that I get to see you at other events around the district as you grow in your Unitarian Universalist faith. I want to thank our musicians for the worship music today, and for Marilyn for assisting as the worship associate this morning. You know, I was reminiscing before I was coming here that I don't think I've ever preached here before. And after the first service, a person who'd been here many years said, "Yeah, I've been here and I'm a faithful attender. You haven't preached here." So that seconded my understanding. I've been here for numerous services and been a congregant, but never had the opportunity to speak. So I'm grateful for this first-time opportunity. I'm reminded of a story of the young lad who was visiting a church for the first time, and he was going around and checking all of the announcements and the posters that were on the wall. He came to a group of pictures of men in uniform, and he asked the nearby usher, Why are all those men in the pictures? Who are they? Well, the usher replied, well, those are our boys who died in service. Dumbfounded, the youngster said, was it the morning service or the evening? So hopefully I won't do any serious harm to you this morning. Now, you've been carrying on while Reverend Peter Friedrichs has been taking a well-earned sabbatical. I actually saw him at a concert in Wilmington recently, and he looked very rested. So I expect that he will come back with new energy and ideas to help you continue growing. And between services, I went downstairs to see what you were doing with the basement. It's going to look beautiful. When I had a sabbatical, when I was serving a church in Florida, the people there also carried on while I was away. Some of them learned about all of the things that we ministers do that don't get seen by a lot of people. I would expect that some of you here in the sanctuary today have also grown in your ministerial skills as a result of taking up some of the tasks that would have normally fallen to Peter. We ministers are grateful for your dedication and your diligence. It's what I want to talk with you about today. Congregation is not made up of only the minister, but of many others who willingly give of their time and their talents for the advancement of the mission and the ministry of the church. Without each of you who are willing to take on a position of doing a portion of the ministry, Peter could not have had that time away to recharge his energy. So it is because of you and your work and your dedication to this congregation that he has had that gift of his time away. Now, the reading this morning speaks of that dedication. She attended well and faithfully to a few worthy things. This story prompted me to do some reflection on my own life. I'm now 64 years old. My mother died when she was 62, my father when he was 69. My grandparents fared a little bit better in longevity, with two of them living into their 80s. May I be so lucky to reach that age in good health. But if I were to die in an auto accident today on my way home, what would the words written about me say in the obituary that might run in the Wilmington newspaper? Would I even garner a mention in the UU world? Each year, the Department of Ministry and Professional Leadership of the Unitarian Universalist Association has a display of deceased ministers who have died in the previous year, and this happens at the General Assembly. The display has a picture and a summary of their ministerial career, as well as any notable accomplishments that they might have had. They are also honored by the reading of the names during the service of the living tradition. What would I want people to think about me when my time comes and my name is read, as it surely will be to every minister who has ever served our faith? What are the few worthy things for which I will be remembered? Will they say that I answered all of my email and phone calls? Will it only be that I served in our ministry for umpteen years in this or that place? Will it be for the work that I did in a UUA district? I hope that people will tell stories about how I was a kind and generous soul. I hope that I will be thought of in a way that honors our faith. I would like to be remembered as someone who attended well and faithfully to a few worthy things. What are those few worthy things that you attend to well? Are you a good steward of your time with others? Or are you so busy with your work that you ignore those who are closest to you? How faithful have you been to this church? A congregation will thrive or die because of the commitment that people are willing to make to do the ministry that beckons all around us. It is the small things that count as much as the big things. 10 years ago, a man drove a cab for a living. It was a cowboy's life, a life for someone who wanted no boss. What he didn't realize until later was that it was also a ministry. Because he drove the night shift, his cab became a moving confessional. Passengers climbed in, they sat behind the man in total anonymity and told him about their lives. He encountered people whose lives amazed him, who ennobled him, who made him laugh and made him weep. Here's a story of attending well and faithfully. No one touched me more than a woman I picked up late one May night. I was responding to a call from a small brick fourplex in a quiet part of town. I assumed that I was being sent to pick up some partiers or someone who had just had a fight with a lover, or maybe a worker who was heading for an early shift at some factory in the industrial part of town. When I arrived at 2:30 in the morning, the building was dark, except for a single light in a ground floor window. Under these circumstances, many drivers would just honk once or twice, wait a minute, and then drive away. But I had seen too many impoverished people who depended upon taxis as their only means of transportation. Unless a situation smelled of danger, I always went to the door. This passenger might be someone who needs my assistance, I reasoned to myself. So I walked up to the door and I knocked. "Just a minute," answered a frail, elderly voice. I could hear something being dragged across the floor. After a long pause, the door opened. A small woman in her 80s stood before me. She was wearing a print dress and a pillbox hat with a veil pinned on it, like something out of a 1940s movie. By her side was a fairly large nylon suitcase. The apartment looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. All the furniture was covered with sheets. There were no clocks on the wall, no knickknacks, no utensils on the counters. In a corner was a cardboard box filled with photos and glassware. "Would you carry my bag out to the car?" she asked. I took the suitcase to the cab and then returned to assist the woman. She took my arm and we walked slowly toward the cab. She kept thanking me for my kindness. Oh, it's nothing, I told her. I just try to treat my passengers the way I would want my mother treated. Oh, you're such a good boy, she said. When we got in the cab, she gave me an address and then asked, could you drive through downtown? Well, it's not the shortest way, I answered. Oh, I don't mind. I'm not in any hurry. I'm on my way to a hospice. I looked in the rearview mirror, and her eyes were glistening. I don't have any family left, she said. The doctor says I don't have very long. I quietly reached over and shut off the meter. What route would you like me to take? So for the next 3 hours, we drove through the city. She showed me the building where she had once worked as an elevator operator. We drove through the neighborhood where she and her husband had lived when they were just newlyweds. She had me pull up in front of a furniture warehouse that had once been a ballroom where she had gone dancing as a girl. Sometimes she'd ask me to slow in front of a particular building or corner and would just sit, staring in the darkness, saying nothing. As the first hint of the sun was creasing the horizon, she suddenly said, I'm tired. Let's go now. We drove in silence to the address she had given me. It was a low building, like a small convalescent home, with a driveway that passed under a portico. 2 orderlies came out to greet us as soon as we pulled up. They were solicitous and intent, watching her every move. They must have been expecting her. Well, I opened the trunk and I took the suitcase to the door. The woman was already seated in a wheelchair. How much do I owe you? She asked, reaching for her purse. Nothing, I said. You have to make a living. There are other passengers. Almost without thinking, I bent and I gave her a hug. She held on to me tightly. You gave an old woman a little moment of joy, she said. Thank you. I squeezed her hand and then walked into that dim morning light. Behind me, a door shut. It was the sound of the closing of a life. I didn't pick up any more passengers that shift. I drove aimlessly, lost in thought. For the rest of that day, I could hardly talk. What if that woman had gotten an angry driver? One who was impatient to end his shift? What if I had refused that run, or had honked once and then driven away? On a quick review, I don't think I've done anything more important in my life. We're conditioned to think that our lives revolve around great moments. But great moments often catch us unaware, beautifully wrapped in what others may consider just a small one. People may not remember exactly what you did or what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. To what do you attend well? and faithfully in your life. I have a poster in my office of Mark Twain. I've read Mark since I was an early youth, and I've had an extensive library of his literary output in my home. I believe he was a religious liberal who understood the human condition far beyond most of us will ever. On the poster that I have is a quote. Comes from Pudd'nhead Wilson's calendar that I have taken to heart. Let us endeavor so to live that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry. I believe that our Universalist tradition resonates better with me than our Unitarian one. I share a passion for our Universalist values which urge us to use the heart as well as the mind. The heart of our faith is based in a love that is unbounded. The more we give away, the more we have. So don't lock the door of your heart. Don't lock that love and hoard it like a limited commodity. So when it comes time for the undertaker, I want to have lived my life giving of my precious time to being with others, to comfort the grieving, to feed the poor, to shelter the homeless, to visit the sick. I don't want to be remembered for any great program that I led. I don't care to be remembered for achieving this number of members or that number of congregations. I want to be remembered for the amount of love that I showed my fellow inhabitants on this world. I want people to know I was on the side of justice. And as one of our hymns says, I was standing on the side of love. This is the worthy thing I hope I can attend well to and faithfully in the days that I'm given to walk this earth. My prayer for each of us is that we will also find those things to which we can attend well and faithfully, so that our lives will be full of giving love away. May we all be given that grace to practice giving away our love to others and have even the undertaker sorry for our deaths. Amen.